As most viewers know, we film on Thursday and upload our episodes on Tuesday. So by the time you get this upload that we're going to talk about right now on the upper house election, the election will already have been called and the winners announced. So we're going to go through a little bit of analysis here of how it stands right now and see if they hold true in 5 days' time, Michael.
I don't know what you're going to do here, but I'll let you be in charge.
Okay, well, I think there are a couple of things that people need to look out for. The LDP striving for a majority of the seats that are up for grabs, or in a coalition reaching 2/3.
Okay, so we predicted that they probably wouldn't, but it looks now, right now on this Thursday, that they're going to make it if you add in the two micro parties that have been associated with them, Osaka Ishin no Kai and Nihon no Kokoro o Taisetsu ni Suru no To, the Party of Japan Kokoro. Let's not go there.
Okay.
But that looks like they're at this 162 line. And if that's the case, then for the Komeito, it's a nightmare.
Well, the LDP, if they win 57 seats, it will be the first time that they have a majority in the upper house for the last 27 years.
That's right. That's the other number, the 121 number that we were discussing the other day. If they do, again, the projections here on Thursday say they have it in the bag, then we have an instability inside the coalition itself. The Komeito no longer provides the number of votes necessary to pass legislation. The Komeito is basically an adipose. It does provide a 2/3 majority in the House of Reps, and that might have constitutional implications, but as in terms of legislation, the chains will be off the LDP for the first time in 27 years.
Right. The other thing to watch is, were the two ministers reelected?
It's always a big thing here that a minister does not go down. And when a minister does go down...
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And it also triggers a reconfiguration of the cabinet.
That's right. It basically demands it, because when a cabinet minister goes down, that's an indication that there is a significant weakness within the cabinet as a whole. You just simply can't gloss it over with, we'll just replace so-and-so with just someone else.
Well, you don't have to absolutely be a member of the parliament to be a member of the cabinet.
That's right. You can bring in someone from the civilian side and have them serve. And that might be something that Mr. Abe, who has avoided doing that, might want to do if in a pinch. But I think we're looking at, after the election, a full reshuffle of the cabinet, and with some people who've been in a position for a long time going. By the way, today, the 7th, is the day that Mr. Suga becomes the longest-serving Chief Cabinet Secretary in history.
How about that? That dynamic between him and the Minister of Finance just continues to go just unbridled.
And he's been in charge of the bureaucracy, he's been in charge of the message for longer than anyone in history, and every day from now on he's made this an historic cabinet and an historic prime ministership. So Mr. Abe, he's going for the record too. He probably won't beat his great uncle Sato, but already it's in the bag. The Abe premiership is one of the great ones of Japanese history.
Well, those decision points are really being defined now, and especially in this election. The third point I'd like to discuss is how many votes were cast in Kanagawa.
And why would that be significant?
That is hugely significant because you've got Mr. Suga opposed to Mr. Aso. They have their own favorite candidates in Kanagawa.
Well, the thing is about the Kanagawa... Okay, first of all, it elects multiple candidates. And when you have multiple candidates, you start to have the dynamics beyond party and beyond faction. I would think that, for example, where you have as many seats open as you do in Kanagawa, that there might even be a youth candidate. Now, the youth vote has been criticized and said that they don't have any power, they don't show up. But when you have 4 or maybe 5 spaces, or in the case of Tokyo, 6, that last seat is something that can be fought over. And in Kanagawa, we have the 2 LDP candidates, but here we have a possibility of there being a dark horse. And that's what's really interesting to me about that. Not so much the infighting between the two, because I frankly, I think it's all for show.
Well, no, here's my point, though, that if in fact there must be a cabinet reshuffle, two of the ministers or one of the ministers loses her position and they need to have a new minister of state, for example, okay? And this fight between Mr. Aso and Mr. Suga, it's divided too much of the attention of the prime minister. One of them has to go or both of them have to go. That decision point could be how Kanagawa shakes out.
I didn't think about that, but that makes sense. In terms of Aso's long-term viability, he's been a source of great comedic relief inside the cabinet, saying all kinds of funny things along the way. But let's face it, finance, he's done enough damage there, to put it mildly. And his time may be finally up.
Well, I think you're right. We had an episode on the GPIF recently that talks about how much money was lost in this gamble to pay for pension funds.
By changing the distribution, the weighting between government bonds and equities, mostly. There have been also foreign equities were also increased. But yes.
And they pushed the date of announcing that until after the elections, and already stories are starting to leak out 5 trillion yen.
Yeah, that's 5 trillion yen, and then in the next quarter as well, that there's going to be a further loss thanks to Brexit and the world markets going south after that. So yeah, whoever's going to be the one. But the thing is, GPIF, that's Koseisho, that's the Ministry of Health. Finance is not going to be affected necessarily, but certainly Mr. Aso, he's going to be taking some hits on this.
He is a powerful politician. It's going to be hard to have a cabinet without him, but something obviously nedes to be done there.
We'll see, because the administration has been so stable and so successful, but Mr. Aso's in his 70s. There are lots of candidates who want a cabinet post. We'll see if that works out.
Right. So you predict that there will be a cabinet reshuffle.
There will be a cabinet reshuffle. I don't know if the Kanagawa result will affect it, because I think there are much longer structural reasons for a breakdown in the relationship between Mr. Abe, Mr. Suga, and Mr. Aso.
Yes.
I think they're present now, and whatever happens on July the 10th is just the cherry on top of the cake, I'm afraid.
Well, I think there's a lot of pent-up frustration among members of the LDP and the other facilitating parties to have a cabinet reshuffle, because there are a lot of people that are waiting for their turn.
That's right. Now, what other things do you see about the election that we should think about?
So my fourth question is about Komeito. Are they going to get 7 of the 7 seats?
Well, they order their people to vote in a way that makes that happen. So, yes. Let's just say a simple yes, in that they are extremely disciplined, and it won't matter that the candidacies are kind of boring, that the issues have not been discussed in a way that's stimulating. That's a problem for parties that need non-aligned voters to show up, like the Democratic Party.
Right.
For the Komeito, they're going to show up no matter how dull the election is, and they're going to vote for their candidates the way they were told to do so.
Well, a lot of people are observing that this campaign is awful boring this year.
Well, I wouldn't say that it's boring. I think it's quite fascinating in terms of the internal maneuvering that's going to have to take place after it. What hasn't happened, though, is a way of exciting people to get them to go to the polls, except for when they are part of some kind of political machine. And that does bleed a lot of the interest out. Also the fact some people are just love two-party systems. They just think that that's the cat's meow. It's one set of ideas taking on another set of ideas. That is gone in Japanese politics, and perhaps they don't want to accept the way it is, which is one single dominant party, and then other parties arrayed around it.
Well, I think Gerald Curtis also pointed out, eminent professor on Japanese campaigning, that this campaign this year is lacking in issues. I mean, they're not talking about nuclear energy. They're not talking
plenty
about
of issues.
They have plenty of issues.
I take completely opposite view on this.
Okay, I'd like to hear it.
Well, look, the opposition in putting together its four-party coalition has. Oops, I used the term alliance there. Its four-party alliance has come up with some basic issues which it allies itself with the basic views of the people, which are
That mess, that opposition alliance that you're talking
yes,
about.
that mess that's running candidates in 32 of 32 single-member districts. They agree that nuclear power should not be in the base load calculations of Japan for the future. They have different views on how quickly they should phase out nuclear, but they're all for nuclear phase out. They all agree that the security legislation passed last year is unconstitutional. They all agree that there should not be, under Prime Minister Abe, any moves toward constitutional revision. They believe that daycare workers should be paid more. They have all these things that they agree on. And they have places in which they can fight on the level of ideas. It's just that their target is so overwhelmingly powerful.
Right.
They're trying to knock down a robot made of iron with cotton swabs. It's just not working.
Yes, well, I think they're writing their campaign slogans with finger paint, because I think the cohesion there is just not, it doesn't exist, and I think the voters also see that. This cohesion that you've been describing is this thick, and after the election, what's going to happen?
I think that's pure LDP propaganda. That's channeled through the Yomiuri Shimbun, saying, "Oh, they're not together. They don't have common goals. This is all very confusing to the voters." That's Yomiuri classic sycophantic. We serve the powerful crap that I simply don't believe in. What the problem is that it's so hard to vote in a district election on the base of ideas. It's
mostly
hard.
personalities.
It's about, who can bring the bacon back to the district. I mean, I watched the NHK program which highlighted one of these new merged districts, the Tottori Shimane district.
They're suffering, aren't they?
Yeah. In that, they are a marginal, parasitic part of Japan that is in no way going to be a jobs generator, no way it's ever going to be a center of political power ever again. And it has as its main fight the LDP member for Shimane, and then an outsider that the four parties are supporting, who's from Tottori. And to watch them campaigning both in their home districts and then going across the border into the other side, you can see that this joint candidacy is hopeless. It's hopeless. Yep. That person cannot promise to this impoverished parasitic prefecture, a pair of prefectures, I can bring the contracts, I can bring the subsidies, I can bring the protections from TPP.
I'll fight for you.
I will fight. He can say that, but everybody listening says, "No, you don't have it, man. You can't. You can't give us anything." And they're going to vote with their heads, and they're going to vote with their wallets, and they're going to go for the LDP. And you can see that nationwide.
Okay, one of the other, I think, barometers is who gets Mie Prefecture.
That's true, but Mie Prefecture is the one place that Okada Katsuya seems to care about.
Right.
The rest of the country, he's sort of already shrugged his shoulders, say, "I'm going to lose, and if we lose very big, I won't put my name out to be the leader of the party." Oh, that's really reassuring.
That's
But he says, "I will definitely quit if we lose in Mie, my home prefecture." Oh, clap, clap, clap. I'm very impressed by your determination.
Right. Well, he is the leader of the largest opposition party, and you would think that he has a little bit more guts and a little bit more charisma, but he isn't really coming home with the goods there.
If he cannot help a two-term incumbent survive in his own home prefecture, of course he should not be head of the DP. He has nothing. He has nothing to offer. It looks as though that, however, his candidate might survive. Whether that's going to in any way change the outcome nationwide, meaning the DP is going to get smashed. Do they continue with Okada? I don't think so. But if he wins in Mie and he starts arguing, well, we won in Mie,
right.
It's going to be just one more fight that the DP doesn't need.
Okay, well, in any event, when Tokyo on Fire is uploaded on Tuesday, that's another point that I think viewers should look at. Who won in Mie? And is Mr. Okada going to resign from the party leadership.
The Michael Cucek faction of this particular group says yes.
Okay. And the last point that I'd like to bring up for your opinion and consideration,
For my
sir,
education, please
is,
tell me.
does the LDP in a coalition reach 2/3, and who cares? Does it matter?
I think, well, based on what we see here on Thursday, that when this goes up on Tuesday, they will have
It's a coin toss.
I think they're pretty close to it. All of the major news organizations that are doing projections, Kyodo yesterday and Nikkei as well.
They're predicting it.
They're predicting it,
Right.
and they've got a really good sense of what's going on the ground all over the country.
But Michael, who cares? What happens if they get that? I mean, all that does is it excites the population to think they're going to change the Constitution, but that's not necessarily a given.
Oh, it is necessarily a given. Since 1955, the charter of the LDP says, we are the party of constitutional revision. It has never had the votes in both houses of the Diet to do that revision. Mm-hmm. If they have the possibility, they already have the 2/3 in the House of Reps, if they get it in the House of Councilors, you have got to be kidding me that Mr. Abe is going to turn around after his career of being a revisionist and say, well, we were just kidding. 60 years, yeah, but we need a few more.
Well,
no, it's done.
okay, maybe the possibility that they could do it, but I think the likelihood that they will actually be able to move on it. I mean, look at us. Every week we talk about an issue, we make predictions about it, and then we change it in the next episode because things are just moving so quickly here.
In this case, this will establish the possibility of doing something that the LDP has stood for 60 years. It's not conceivable that Abe can hold back and not go forward with constitutional revisions.
He's just driven. He's driven to do it.
The numbers drive it. It's the juggernaut that he helped push all his life. He has pushed on constitutional revision, and in interpolations in the Diet has had all of these sock puppets pop up and say, Mr. Abe, if you had the chance, would you do this? And he's saying, yes, of course, but it's not going to happen, so let's just deepen the conversation.
Right.
When he finally has the votes, all of those years of preparation and all of those years of thundering, we need to be able to do this, that bill is going to come due.
Well, I think that's not going to come to fruition because, like TPP, there was a lot of energy spent on it, and now we have to sit on our hands. Similarly, with revising the Constitution, I mean, look at his term that's left over, how difficult it is to get a referendum going, to get 2/3 to vote on that referendum. I think there's a lot at stake here.
Well, you and I were going to have to disagree, and when Tuesday comes around and this is loaded up, you and I will have probably completely opposite opinions.
Absolutely. Let's visit it next week. Thank you for staying tuned. Good luck on the election to all of our candidates that are running for this Sunday. We're going to follow that and update you in our next episode.